This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, let's talk about this game plan for the Cleveland Browns versus the Texans in one of the most important games of the year. I mean, if you win this game versus the Houston Texans, it not only puts you in prime position for a playoff spot, I believe it puts you in that 99th percentile projection to get into the playoffs if New York Times is projector serves me right on this. That is what happens if the Browns win this game, or at least what is most likely. Now, the clinching scenario, so the Browns that can mathematically clinch, I have no idea what needs to happen there. But I do know that based on almost 1 million simulations on New York Times, you could pull it up right now if you don't believe this. If the Browns simply win this game, they have a 99% chance of getting into the playoffs. Now, if the Browns win out, you see the percentages for hosting a wild card game all of a sudden go up to about 20. So the Browns have a lot on the line for the rest of the week. They have a lot on the line this week. But if the Browns win, they go from a team that's already at 91% chance of making the playoffs. This one right here takes them to less than, well, within 1% of not making it. So they have a less than 1% chance of not making it, and a 99% chance of making it. This is how important this game is. I need everybody to understand this. Kevin Stefanski has been saying this for a while within the guys in the locker room. It's a playoff game every week. And it's never been more true than this week. This is an opportunity. The next game is an opportunity to secure what you feel like you have earned. This team has earned a playoff spot, but they have to secure a playoff spot. And winning this game and then coming back home and beating the Jets for a chance to keep yourself alive to win the division is everything to this Cleveland Browns team. So within these next few days that we have here, right, 2 games in 7 days, this is going to be a very important stretch for the Cleveland Browns as they look to make that final postseason run. So what needs to happen in this game and what kind of intensity do they need to have? The first things first. If you're the Browns defense, and again, winning and losing with this Browns team starts and ends with the defense. It's been that way all year. If you're the Browns defense, you got to find a way to make sure Devin Singletary stays out the game plan for the Houston Texans. They cannot run the ball, right? You cannot let them get comfort running this football. You want them to feel like they have to throw the ball with Case Keenum. You want to get them behind the sticks early. You want to go downhill, and you want to play that attacking style of football, because I'm going to keep it a buck with you. If you pressure Case Keenum and he has to throw it, he's going to turn that ball over. There are going to be opportunities for sacks, interceptions, and strip sacks and fumbles if you make him drop back and throw that ball, right? If you let them get away with running the ball with Devin Singletary a ton of times, okay, they might gash you here or there. They might stay ahead of the sticks, and they might not make small mistakes, so you might not be able to win that way. But if you get pressure on Case Keenum, he gonna give you that ball. He gonna give you that ball. Point blank, period. The only way Case Keenum can hurt you is if you allow him to get comfortable. And the only way you can allow Case Keenum to get comfortable is if you let Devin Singletary get 5 yards on first down. If you let Devin Singletary get 20 yards on the end around. If you let Devin Singletary gas you up, right? If that's what you let happen, then you're going to have issues. So if you're the Cleveland Browns, this is about making sure that Case Keenum doesn't have a second of peace, a second of comfort in this game. And taking Devin Singletary out of the game plan is key in that. You want Case Keenum to feel like he got to do all this himself, because that's when he's going to make the mistakes. He has a weak arm. He throws a slow football, and he has a tendency to hold on to that football, and he's not the most secure with the football when hit. You know the scouting report. You've gone against this in practice. It ain't no different. You've seen it. You know that you can get that money off on him. So make sure you put it up to him. No disrespect to Case Keenum, but he's food. And you want to make sure that the food is what's in charge of the football and not Devin Singletary. So get the food to make the decisions. They have decent tackles. Well, not decent, they have good tackles. Both of their tackles are playing at a pretty high level. Laramie Tunsil, obviously, you guys know about him, but the other tackle they have is playing well. Shaq Mason is playing well, but the other two guards are kind of suspect. But 3 out of 5 offensive linemen is usually enough to get away with, not having the greatest interior of guys. So that'd be an area where you want to attack. I also think that you have to worry about like Robert Woods and Nico Collins, even though I like your matchups at wide receiver versus your cornerback. So I think that you'll be ultimately fine there. It's again about getting Devin Singletary out the game plan for the Cleveland Browns. That's what you need to do. You stop them from running the ball. You don't let Case Keenum get comfortable. If you pressure Case Keenum, you make Case Keenum uncomfortable. You can walk out of this game with 7 sacks and 4 interceptions and maybe even a couple of defensive touchdowns. I'm not exaggerating. You're that good, and Case Keenum is Case Keenum. No disrespect to Case Keenum, but we all know what it is. Not saying he Tim Boyle, but you get your money off on Case Keenum. We all know it. So that's what they have to do. But in order to do that, got to make sure you don't let him get comfortable. And the number one way he's going to try to get comfortable is Devin Singletary. Obviously, you do other things to make sure he doesn't get comfortable, but you got to pressure him. You got to get pressure on Case Keenum, because if you get pressure on Case Keenum, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day, at least defensively. Now let's talk about the Browns offense. There's 2 areas in which the Browns offense needs to get better at, and they've left opportunities on the board because they're not good at these spots. And this is specific to when Joe Flacco is out there. I mean, like, the turnovers have not been specific to Joe Flacco. Every quarterback's had them, but Joe Flacco's playing right now, and he's turned the ball over, so that's what we talk about. So turnovers on one thing. We've turned the ball over too many times. I talked about it. 7 turnovers in 3 games is similar to what P.J. Walker was doing. That's not a number anybody finds acceptable. While Joe has played well outside of those turnovers, you still want those turnovers to cut down. In no way am I going to sit here and accept 14 turnovers in 6 games. So nobody else should be willing to accept that. Joe Flacco is not willing to accept that. So I don't know why people are willing to make excuses for that. 7 turnovers in 3 games. He's played well outside of them, but he has to cut that turnover number down. He said this. I said this. Kevin said this. I don't understand why people act like pointing that out is controversial. You can think that some of these turnovers aren't his fault, and maybe some of these turnovers aren't his fault, but they're happening while he's at quarterback, so he's going to be the one who gets blamed for them. That's how this game goes. So Joe, got to find a way to limit the turnovers. I don't care who's at fault for these turnovers. 7 in 3 weeks is too many. I think we can all agree on that. I think Joe Flacco would agree on that. I think that they need to get better at that. Another area where even Joe Flacco would agree at, they need to get better at, is taking advantage of good field position. Too many times in the last 3 weeks, the Browns have gotten the ball at the 45 or close to the 50 in plus field position or close to plus field position and haven't been able to even squeeze out a field goal. I can count off the top of my head 6 opportunities like this. There's almost 3 a game that we don't capitalize on. We got to start getting those 10 to 15 yards on those drives to get those field goals at the very least. We're squandering a lot of good field position. Look, we need Joe Flacco to give you those 2 drives from the 20 a game, right? Like, that's all we need from Joe Flacco is give us some 2 drives from the 20 a game and then get us 15 yards on a couple of drives that we're going to have at the 40. That's what we need from Joe Flacco. That's how we plan to get to 20, 19, however we need to get to these point totals. That's how we'll get there. And part of getting there is capitalizing on these opportunities. The turnovers and not capitalizing on short fields are the reason why the point differential has not been what it should be the last few weeks. The Browns should have beat Jacksonville by multiple scores, but not taking advantage of short fields and turning the ball over stood in the way of that. The same exact thing happened in Chicago. While I'm thrilled that we won those 2 games, there's a lot of room for improvement in those 2 games, and that's specifically where that room for improvement is on the offense. Is don't turn the ball over as much. I'm okay with 1 turnover. Like, 1 turnover is fine. But 3 or 2 or multiple, you can't have multiple. Just 1 turnover, stay under that turnover number. And then also, let's get some of those drives where we're at the 40 and let's get those extra 20 yards to get the field goals, right? That's what this team needs to do on offense to be able to help its defense. If you do both of these things this week, you are going to win this game. This is a very winnable game. You have some good matchups. I understand that this might be a more difficult week to throw the ball because Steven Nelson and Derek Stingley have been playing really good football, but they don't have a lot of safety help this week. I got Jalen Petrie, but other than that, they've had a lot of safeties in and out the lineup. They have good run defending linebackers, but not the greatest run defending interior linemen, like even some good edges, but not the great run defending interior linemen. So I think if you can get, Joe Bitonio and Ethan Posick back healthy, this is going to be a great week to do a lot of inside zone running. And I think what the Browns are going to want to do early in this game is try to force the Texans into base and get Denzel Perryman in coverage on David Njoku or Amari Cooper in the slot and really try to take advantage of those linebackers in coverage because they don't really love Denzel Perryman in coverage. So we'll see what they do to adjust for that. I think that's one of the big game plan items that the Cleveland Browns are going to come into this game with. That being said, I think this is a game that the Browns should win. What I want to see from this team to feel good about a playoff run potentially, and it's amazing that we're talking about this given all the injuries, but to feel good about a playoff run for this team, it's not just good enough to win, right? I expect you to win this game. Now we're at the point to where other things start to matter because we're not judging the Browns based on what they can do against a Case Keenum Texans team. We're judging them based on how they could play the Kansas City Chiefs, the Miami Dolphins, or the Baltimore Ravens to get to where this team has hopes to get to. And the fact is that they need to get used to playing the games, the type of games that can beat those teams and not the type of games that you can get away with because you're playing some mediocre teams. So if, and no disrespect to Texas, they're a good team when CJ Stroud is in there, but if CJ Stroud is not in there, we don't look at them the same. So for the Cleveland Browns, what you need to do this week is show that you could be that same type of dominant team you were at home versus Arizona, that you were at home versus Tennessee, that you can be on the road, right? Have one of those dominant defensive performances. There's no reason Case Keenum should be walking out of here with a good reputation after this game. There's no reason Case Keenum should walk out of here feeling good about himself after this game. There's no reason that this defense can't do to Case Keenum similar to what they did to Clayton Tune, similar to what they did to other quarterbacks who've walked in here. Joe Burrow, ton of guys, all at home. Ryan Tannehill, right? All at home. They need to put together one of those performances on the road. Secondly, for the Browns offense, you have been the reason the Browns offense has been part of the reason the Browns are winning, but they've also been part of the reason the Browns are winning closely, specifically because they're getting in their own way far too often and giving up points to their opponents by throwing interceptions at the beginning of drives, by turning the ball over with fumbles like Amari Cooper did in Jacksonville, like by throwing interceptions. Like all of these things have gotten in their way and cost them points or opportunities at points when they really shouldn't. Penalties when you get good field position on the offensive line, procedural penalties, all of this. You need to find a way to get out of your own way this week and help the defense and have one of those, I'm not saying blowout games, but have one of those games where you can win by a comfortable 7 or 10 point margin. That's what you want to see and you need to see from this Browns team to feel comfortable about a playoff run, because it's one thing to be able to squeeze out some wins versus some bad teams. It's another thing to be able to show up and play and be the 9-5, hopefully 10-5 football team that record says that you are, instead of having these teams who are, 5-8, 6-7 play up with you. So if you're the Browns, this is a week to let everybody know that you're in playoff mode, that you're going to start to play cleaner football on the offensive side. You're going to start to take advantage of these opportunities that you have on the offensive side of football, and that's where the focus is going to be this week. So that's my thoughts. That's my game plan, my hopes for this game. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.